Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote. Hello, welcome to Across the Park podcast from myself, Ian Mills. Delighted to be joined for his hat-trick appearance on the show. Fantastic to have you back, Baz. It's Mick Rathbone. He was the head physio, head of medicine from Everton from 2002 to 2010. Baz, how are you?
Oh, my first senior hat-trick.
Hey, what a time.
Hey, it's been a long time coming. I never thought I'd get a hat-trick being a defender, but no, it's good to be. You know that intro video, Ian? Just see Goodison and, it's got the last few hairs standing upon the back.
Special.
Of my neck, mate. Always, I've just come back from Oldham. I've been running up down the terraces behind the goals, and I was saying to the two young lads who were coming back from long-term injuries, wow, this reminds me of Everton. I must bore people to death. Everton. Every Saturday morning for a home game, we get the injured lads up and down the Gladys Street end like so. It's really funny, and everything seems to come back to Everton. Everything I do, my lad's at Rotherham now, and he loves Everton. They were his formative years, the 8 years I was there. But he's kind of hoping they get relegated because his dream is to play on Goodison. So he's kind of, obviously Rotherham has stayed up now, done unbelievably well to stay up, and he's kind of half of him hating to say it, but wants Everton to get relegated. So
you know what, Baz? I'd much rather draw them in the cup.
Yeah. I was going to say cup final, but no, it has to be the quarter final. Got to be at Goodison.
Yeah, you'd have me at cup final. Look, you're in the right place to talk about Everton. We want to recap your Everton career, 2002 to 2010, and then a little bit as well after that, which we'll get into. In 2002, David Moyes called you, in hindsight, his best ever signing for the football club, and he brought you over from Preston. He knew you from being part of the backroom team at Preston. And he brought you to Everton in 2002. Can you talk a little bit about that telephone call, that decision, and what went into it?
There was 100 telephone calls that summer. Me and my kids were in Norca, and Dave was phoning, I need you. The funny thing about that, when Dave said that, it was really funny when he said I was his best ever signing. I've been upstairs into a meeting with Dave, and he'd annoyed me about something. I mean, he's the best. He's my mate. I love him. He gave me everything. I would not hear a bad word. But I came downstairs and I thought, right? I went into my little office and I was raging about something. And the telly was on the wall. And they said to David Moyes, I guess Nigel Martin, your best ever signing. And he goes, no. He goes, I think Baz, my physio's best ever signing. I thought, I love you all over again. You're forgiven, Dave. I love you. But it was interesting that summer because I knew Dave was going. He went for the last couple of games of the previous year, and then he was phoning me through the summer. And it was interesting because I had a really good contract at Preston. And, the kind of thing nowadays is you just leave the club, sort it out. I've gone, so what are you going to do about it? And Dave wanted me to go and that, but I said, no, Dave. I said, I'm not going because I've slept comfortably through the managerial change at Preston, knowing I've got this year's notice contract and that. So I'm not walking out. And Dave was like, okay, fair enough, but we're not paying a year's wages for you. It was really interesting. I was on £45,000 a year. So I don't know what happened in the end. It got sorted out amicably. So I'm assuming that maybe Everton paid that contract off. So when I sat back in later life, I thought, God, I was worth more as a physio than I was as a player. I went for £40,000. So I don't know if I'm a great physio or I was just a bad player. I don't know. Someday I think either way. But it was a fantastic summer. And I say it was quite nerve-wracking because I'd made my way up through all the scales and that through the conference, and then Preston in the bottom division, then the next one. And then me and Dave got to the Championship, nearly got in the Premier League when Bolton beat us. But it was still a pretty big step forward. So while I was on holiday and the phone calls kept coming in, I was excited, but I was nervous all the same because you don't know if you're going to make that step up. So it was kind of like double jeopardy on that summer. I was in Menorca, as I said, long time ago, but magical days in.
Yeah. I mean, when you came in, I'll be honest, I remember it. We had a very, very unfit squad. I think that the Walter Smith era, Walter had his back to the wall and he signed some agent players, and the dressing room the dressing room was a lot smaller than the physio room. So when David came in and I think he spoke openly to the fan base that you were going to come in and sort of help and help with training plans and fitness plans and things. And as we get into that, we'll see that did work. But was that a big challenge for you to walk into not only a Premier League dressing room, but ones that's now been renowned for having a lot of injured players, big players?
I didn't know it was like that. You just made me go all nervous then. You know what was funny though? I didn't really want to leave Preston because I was comfortable in the Championship. And my good friends, all the players at Preston, were like begging me to stay, and the chief exec. And it was really, really lovely. And it was so close to home. I'd play for them and that. So eventually I decided to go because you have to move up and onwards for the best of your family and that. But I was really nervous. And a lot of the Preston players had really spooked me. And they were saying things like, oh, we've heard the lads in the Premier League are horrible to the medical staff. And in particular, we've heard that Duncan Ferguson is an awful person and he treats the physios terribly. You probably know the story. So on my first day, I get to Belfield and I'm really nervous. But I've done it for my wife and kids and all the right reasons. And I'm sat in the car park, it's a really hot day. And I think, come on, man up. This is all for the right reasons. I bravely got out of the car and I walked across the car park. And I never forget, I had some denims on, a denim jacket, and I had a yellow check shirt on. And I went into the old foyer at Belford and I'm stood there kind of shaking. I then hear a really loud voice I know to be Duncan shouting, by the way, have you clocked the new physio? It's Bob the effing builder. And then everybody bursts out laughing. I can hear the laughter Then the door like in a kind of western, like a ranch door gets booted open. And from the other end of the corridor, Big Dunk fills the tunnel and comes strutting up towards me. He puts his hand out, he goes, I'm Big Dunk. I've finished a few physios' careers. I said, oh, hi. I said, I'm Baz. I finished a few players' careers. He puts his face in my face and he goes, brilliant, pal. We're going to be friends. And I said something like, oh, that's good because you're going to spend the season in the medical room, I've heard. He come up to me again and goes, I like you. We're going to be pals. And then he disappeared. And then Kevin Campbell came out. When I was Kevin Campbell, I'm club captain. Everyone's heard a lot about you, Baz. Really loving to work. They're really excited about you coming to the club. And that was it, Ian. I was in. And every single day of those 8 years was magical.
Two of those players you just spoke about, I was referencing big players who we couldn't get fit the previous season and we missed them. And I think I've read your book, and I'm quite a good historian with going back and remembering things in real time. I think you were really important in prolonging Duncan's career because he was in for a couple of games and out for a couple of games, in for a couple of games, out for a couple of games. And did you come in and get some nerve studies done and found the problem?
Yeah, listen, I was lucky in. I came in and things went really well. Yeah, the medical team did a good job, but we were really lucky as well. In my last year at Everton, we were really unlucky. So there is an element of that. It wasn't me being magic or anything like that, although the medical team were outstanding and that, But I did have some luck. But when you come into a situation with new eyes and it's not A, it's definitely not B, it's definitely not C, they've proven it's not D, it can only be E, no matter how unlikely it is. So I was lucky in that as well, and we found something really unusual. But if I'd have started by looking at A, then B, then C, then D. So I had a lot of luck here, a lot of luck, a lot of good people. It was really interesting because I'd never had a staff. I worked on my own, always. When I was at Preston, I did all the first team, all the reserves, did every resi game, played in a lot of them myself and physio.
Yeah.
You're literally a one-man band. And then I go there and Moisey says to me, Bazzy, because you've got staff, there's a doctor, 2 young physios, Matt and Danny, and Jimmy the masseur. It's up to you what you do with them. If you want to keep them, if you don't get rid. And I'm thinking, get rid? I don't get rid of people. I would never do that. But I was really, really lucky. Those guys I mentioned turned out to be wonderful people and wonderful Evertonians and amazing medics. Danny went on to head the whole thing up. I think Matt's head of medical Man City's academy. Jimmy's still there doing a great job. So I was lucky and even more lucky. And everybody really accepted me fantastically well. So
Yeah.
I had a lot of luck in.
Well, that was a big risk from Duncan to trust you as the new physio to undergo such, because it was a big operation he went under, wasn't he? He was out for almost a season.
Yeah, he was out for a long. I mean, I watched the operation and luckily found out the problem. It was really unusual and that. I guess I gained his trust. He invited me to both his christenings and that, and I think we've become really good friends. And my ambition is to work at Blackburn Rovers.
Okay.
That's it, because that's where I've done my career and that. And that's my ambition. Like, it's the only club I would work full time for again. Yeah. And when I kept seeing in the newspapers that Dunk was maybe getting attached to that, I text Dunk, still have the same phone number from all them years ago, because Dunk would always say to me, boy, if I get a job, boy, you're my first appointment. So I thought, right. And then I saw that, Ian, and I texted him, I goes, don't forget. He goes, hey, pal, that's your house, boy. Then when he got to Forest Green, I thought, oh, God, don't text me. And he never did. He never did.
And the second player you spoke to there, who greeted you on your first day, Kevin Campbell. Kevin, one of my favourite players, watching him play for Everton. He's also a friend of the show. He's been on a few times. Kevin was someone who was injured a lot in the previous season again. But the 2002-2003 season, I've got no bones about saying a couple of fans were quite nervous as to whether we'd get the old Kevin Campbell back because of the injuries. He came out the traps flying. He was fit. He was scoring goals. What was Kevin like to work with? Was he a top bloke?
Always. I'll never forget about Kev. I'd only been there about 4 months. It was my birthday, and he gave me a bottle of Cristal champagne.
Wow.
I thought, God. I looked at it. I thought, God, that bloody hell! I didn't even want to drink it. I didn't even want to open the bottle, And it was just. I guess it was my realising you're now in the big time where people don't give you 4 cans of Badger lager anymore. They give you bottles of Cristal champagne. Kev was great. You see him now on the telly. He's always been very humble, hasn't he? He's a lovely man. He was great with me. But again, I don't want to be playing the soft lad, but I had a lot of luck as well, Ian. I had a lot of really good people around. We had a fantastic manager. The Wayne Rooney influence, him coming through, everything came together to be a magnificent season. We finished 7th despite being relegation favourites, So that was magical. And, my great memories of that season was we had that team bus with it writing all over the side, Everton in blue, didn't we?
Yeah.
And every time we went to an away game, Spurs, Southampton, when you got within a mile of their stadium, all you could see was Evertonians and that. It was a magical time for me. I think it was quite a magical time for the fans and the club and that. And it was the Moyes start of the era, the no nonsense, heart on your sleeve, really wanted to do all for the club. And it was the emergence of Wayne. It was a combination of factors. It was Dave calling it the People's Club inspired. Everything come together to make that kind of passion, which has always been there, really, really ramped up in that particular season. So it was special on so many levels.
That season, I think we missed out on Europe on the final game of the season. Now to go from being where we were before then to that, it was a really good season. Now one of the big reasons for the feel good factor is we just had this emerging talent who everybody wanted a piece of, but he was ours. Wayne Rooney came through. I'm trying to go through your career in order, so we'll get to the Euros and we'll get to the metatarsal. But just before that, there was always rumours that Moisey would pull his hair out because Wayne would be playing football with his friends after matches in the streets, and he was playing too much football, and David pull his hair out. What was Wayne like at Belfield Monday to Friday? And I know he wasn't really injured, but what was he like around the place?
Very, very, very lovely guy. He gets a bad rap in some areas, but really interesting. When he had the metatarsal, if you weren't sure what time he was in with me that summer, he'd phone up and he's now the most famous player possibly in the world. And my wife would say, somebody on the phone asking for Mr. Rathbone. And it'd be Wayne and that. He was a diamond, a delight. I've seen him a couple of times recently. When I went to Salford last year, my first game was Derby Way in the Carling Cup, it's even called that. I've seen him a couple of times recently. His younger brother is at Oldham, John, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, for me, a really nice, humble guy. As I say, he has got a bit of a bad rep in some areas, but I never saw that side of him. When he had the injury, super keen to get back, super dedicated, a terrible patient, but a great patient. I was terrified that he'd refracture the bone. And I remember when he had the plaster off, we went to Wrightington Hospital, the specialist took the plaster off, and I'm saying to Wayne, please sit there, don't you dare move. I went somewhere, I come back, and he was walking up and down the corridor in bare feet. And he gave me some of the best moments of my life and some of the worst moments of my life. And I say, the jogging bit was great, the jogging bit was safe, but then like we'd be jogging around Belfield in training shoes, slowly, soft trainers, soft surface, early repair stages of the foot and that, like, because I'm thinking if this refractures, my career's over essentially, like, you know, so my bag of nerves. And then a ball would come over from the first and we'd run and get it and kick it back. And I'll be, bloody hell, Wayne, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? But in every way, great. And really, you want your injured players to be like that. You want them desperately keen to get back. So one of the best experiences of my life, if you pin me down to it, all in all, over the last, God, what is it now, 50 years for me, that's right up there, working with Wayne with the broken foot and being around the emergence of Wayne. My son was probably 2002, so he would be, he was born in 2000, he was born in 96, he was 6 or 7. And some days, when there was just me and Wayne in, I'd bring Ollie into training and that, and he couldn't believe it. And Wayne had taken for some passing and shooting and that. And, you know, my lad is out there kicking the ball about with Wayne Rooney. So we were so blessed, mate. So lucky. I keep saying lucky and that, you know. I'm going to say fortunate because you have to do the job well when you get there. But I've had a lot of good fortune behind me.
You keep saying lucky. I'm not buying it. I'm going to start blowing some smoke up yours, because I thought you, from the outside as an Evertonian, I thought you'd done a great job. And the question I wanted to ask in relation to that is when you came in 2002 and you can say, look, and that's fine, but the team were obviously fitter. How much rein did David give you in relation to setting, you know, fitness regimes out? Was it free rein, or was it sort of he had to approve everything? Or
well, we did the Preston pre-season. Me and Dave invented a pre-season on the hills of Avon Park, 7 years pre-season, and we just incorporated the same super tough pre-season. And you know what? The lads loved it. They bought into it because every player wants to be fit. Every player wants to play well. Every player wants to be successful. I'm not saying they're not moaning when you're doing it, but all the players wanted to be at Everton. They wanted to play for Dave. Yeah, they'd grumble about this, that, and the other, but they knew with David Moyes, they'll play the best football generally of their career. So everybody bought into it. And you know what? What was I, God, 44 then, 43. And I ran at the front of the group. I was super fit in those days and that. And there's no doubt about it. And Dave would run at the front as well. And Alan Irvine would run at the front. And listen, don't you dare complain, because Baz, Moisey, and Lummy be at the back. Me, Alan and Dave were running at the front in the heat in Austria, in the heat in Houston. So don't you be crying, it's too hard. So I think there's an ability, if you can do it and you can join in, nobody can complain. And when I work with the injured players, we train really, really hard. I never asked any player at Everton to do any drill that I wouldn't do side by side or I couldn't do with him. And he can't look at me and say, this is too hard, when I've just got inside the times. So I was looking away because I was such a really good runner that it was kind of my unique selling point. And I guess it's pretty inspirational. And it leaves the player with nowhere to go. Right, we've got 12, I don't know, box to boxes, all in 10 seconds. And listen, don't say it's too hard if I can get it, because I'm 44. And even today, older, I've been running up and down the Teddyson. I come second place now. I'm slipping down the pack. It was really funny, really interesting. This, I've always been a really good runner. When I was at school, I was a cross country champion, Birmingham School's 800 metre champion in the early 70s. Every club I've been at, I've been the best runner, cross countries and all that. Obviously. And I used to love pre-season because I would always win all the running, and it was the best running in the world, and the lads were all knackered at the back and I'd win everything. It was amazing. Obviously, as I've got into my 60s, I'm dropping off. And when I was at Tranmere doing their pre-season last year on day one, we all went out, it was in 4 groups. And we had to run a kilometre, and we had to do it in like 5 minutes, rest, walk from it, and then go again. Now I'm 63, I was then, like, you know, I'm finding this really, really hard. And like all of a sudden, I'm thinking, did he say 5 or 6 of these? And all of a sudden, I'm now the player saying, Jesus Christ, Mickey Mellon, what a guy. Jesus Christ, let's pray. Back in the 80s, I was, come on, make it 8, make it 10. But I'm thinking, God, no more, no more. So I had a good insight in pre-season at Tranmere, what it was like to be one of the crappy runners back in the 80s, when I was like half a mile ahead in the cross country.
Oh, you mentioned there about a few grumbles and stuff, and we'll move into 2004. Now 2004 was loaded. That 2004-5 season. I've got lots of content to ask you about. Just to give you a bit of backstory, we've had Lee Carsley on the show. We've had David Weir on the show, and they both said they thought at the end of the 03-04 season, I think we got beat 5-1 by Man City, and they felt staff, manager, and players were a little bit, they weren't as connected as a year or so prior. There was a little bit of a clear out in the summer, and you went to Houston, and you came back, and I don't know what happened in Houston, but I'm going to ask you, what happened in Houston? Because you came back at a different club.
Okay, I'll tell you something really interesting about that. First year, incredible. Second year, didn't happen. 5-1 got pumped, didn't we? At the last game of the season, I can see Dave stood there with his chest out, getting loads of stick in that game. Gary Naismith scored late on, so it was 5-0. And then something really interesting happened. So Dave's number one for me as a man, as a manager. And he ran the club brilliantly well. We went for 4 days to Austria to do all the running and the condition work before we went to Houston. And we decided, me, Lummy, Alan and Dave, Andy Holden, brilliant member of staff, we were all over in Austria. We said, look, it's not gone well last season. Let's ease off a little bit and let's give them some space and let's try a slightly more arm round you approach. And that happened. So we took all that to the training pitch, and let me think. We had 3 different groups and wanted it to be a fun day. Dave had a group of players and they were doing some chip the ball onto the crossbar from 40 yards comp. And Lummy had the lads in the other corner, 7 or 8 players. A little comp, bit of fun, lovely day in Austria, mountain in the background, curl the ball in from the corner flag, a little bit of a competition. And I took some lads for some conditioning work, nice and easy. 3 groups rolling around, lovely day. At night, we're having a drink, me and all the staff. And Moisey goes, how did it go today then? Like, you know, and we was all like, yeah, good fun. The lads seem to relax and enjoy it. I think we're doing the right thing and that, like, you know. And Moisey goes, as a matter of interest, who won the, he said to Lummy, who won that kicking the ball in from the corner? And Lummy goes, well, actually, I won that. And Moisey goes, well, that's funny. I won the chipping the ball on the bar. I said, Christ. I said, I won the running. And we all laughed out loud. And we said, listen, we've had it. Let's just enjoy the trip to Houston. Now, that's kind of a metaphor because we decided to do that anyway. We did the hard work in Austria. Some players were a bit maybe disappointed that having finished 7th, they didn't maybe get the contracts they wanted. Nothing to do with me. I think maybe Rad's moved on. Marcus Bent kept me. I don't remember. There was
Rizky left in a bit of a. He said some things, didn't he?
I like Tom very much. I like Thomas very much. But I did know that there was an atmosphere over there in Austria about certain things like that. So we decided when we get to Houston, we'll do the work in Austria, the hard yard, and let's let them go out and enjoy themselves. Went to a baseball game, and that's what happened. We went over to Houston. I thought it was really interesting. A load of fans came over, and they wanted a showdown with Davey Moyes in the hotel. And Moyes goes to me, Baz, I want you to come to that. I thought, oh, Jesus Christ, why me? I'm a bloody physio, mate. Why have I? But you know what? It's really interesting because you know the fans are passionate. And we sat round with me, Dave. Obviously, I think Lummy must have been there. Woodsy probably. Must have been Alan Irving. All the staff. And about 20 fans. And they weren't happy. And they felt the commitment weren't right. And they felt things weren't right. And that, like, you know. And it was scary, stroke inspiring, stroke you now know your responsibilities. And as I say, we went to the watch the Houston Astros play baseball. We trained hard, we worked hard, but we consciously give the lads a little bit more space than we maybe normally would have done. and we let them bond and get together. There was a massive Starbucks. I'd never heard of Starbucks. There was a massive Starbucks right by the hotel in the Mall in Houston, and we deliberately decided that we'd like loosen off, not in terms of the training, but give the lads more time to be maybe away from the staff and that. Have a few beers, and they were great. They didn't go mad, and it was really interesting. There's a cheesecake factory there as well, and the lads would go out at night and have a coffee and a beer and a Starbucks and a piece of cheesecake. And the next morning, when me, Matt Connery, Jimmy Cohen went into the medical room, there was all half uneaten bits of cheesecake in there. Me, Jimmy, and thinking about Matt, and wolf them down in the morning. Great days, free cheesecake. But yeah, it was that year. It was a conscious decision to say, look, we can smell how it's going. Dave was great at reading the room. When things are going well, clamp down. Be a B-A-S-T-I-R-D. Be hard, be unreasonable, squeeze the last out. When things aren't going great, then you back off. Then it's the baseball. Then it's the lying. Then it's, listen, we're going to have a few beers together. You can go out tomorrow night as long as you don't go mad. And Dave was a master at reading the room, and he knew that there'd been a little bit of bad feeling in the Austria trip and around there. Some lads weren't happy. Maybe time to shake things up a little bit. He read that room, and he thought, right, we're going forward now. I'm just going to let off a little bit, slacken off a little bit, like, you know. And he read the room perfectly. I say, you know, it's really interesting because that narrative in a way breaks down, because I think we lost the first game 4-1 home to Arsenal.
Right, yeah.
We go to Palace, newly promoted, and you know what? Fine lines, but you do make your own luck here. We're at Palace, we're losing 1-0, yeah? And we're not playing well, and it's getting a bit messy, it's getting a bit ugly, and that, like, you know, their goalkeeper dwells on the ball. Kev Campbell robs him, he pulls Kev down, Gravison pen, Gravison winner. We never look back, I don't think, from that game. When I look back, I'm thinking, Speroni, what if you just booted that ball at the park and you beat us 1-0? What if? I don't know, Ian.
We only lost two from that game, from the Arsenal game. We only lost 2 Premier League games until the new year.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to go back to the narrative of the Houston trip and that, like, you know. But in a funny kind of way, equally, I always used to think that season when we had that 4th place celebration, everybody had to. I think Liverpool got beat Arsenal on the Sunday, was waiting by our phones. You get on it, in everybody to Central Liverpool, like, for a great, one of the best nights that I've ever had, because we finished 4th and that, like, you know. Yeah. But I still think to myself, what if Speroni would have just cleared that ball?
You think like a proper Evertonian, Baz. You sound like an Evertonian. This is what we're like all the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The glass is always half empty.
That's it.
Yeah.
You're talking there, come back from Houston, and just to get into that 04-05 season, Wayne was still around, but as a fan, every time you pick up the Echo, you didn't want to look at what it was saying, because it was obvious even to the most biased Evertonian. He's outgrown that team, and there's rumours that the club needed the money. I think in hindsight, Wayne's done some media with Tony Bellew and Toffee TV in hindsight, and he's got into the weeds of he felt a little bit angry that the club were maybe trying to move him on, so then he reacted in a way that broke the relationship. What was it like for you? Because you were with him all the time during that period. Was it difficult for you?
Yeah, and I don't get involved in that stuff, but it wasn't difficult because he was such a nice, humble guy. However, on a personal, selfish note, I was praying he got sold because he had this broken foot. It was healing so slowly. Every 2 week extra, I'm looking at it thinking, bloody hell, I'm under pressure here. And I think, wouldn't it be great now if somebody signed him and they had the responsibility of the final rehab's the hard bit here, the twisting, the turning, the jumping, the hopping. So we're about to go into that phase. So he goes, it's really interesting. He goes over to Man United for a medical. I'm thinking, thank God. I'm watching it unfold early in the morning on that day. And then to my horror, I see him leaving for the gymnasium. He's got running gear with him. I'm thinking, right, he's doing a stress test for his heart and lungs. What about if his foot breaks on that treadmill? That's a nightmare. That's going to finish me and probably finish the Man U medical people as well. Whose player is he? So I'm sat there for about 3 hours, and then about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Sky Sports comes back on. Wayne's got the Man U scarf. I'm thinking, thank God for that. So, interestingly, the story within the story for me that day was, what a bloody relief that he went, because he was always going to go, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think it was just the manner of how he went, but I think it's been explained since by him as to what really happens. But at the time, it was hurtful. Look, we'll go into the 04-05 season now, and we had half a season of whilst he was at Everton, that was his best half a season. It was Tommy Gravison. We've heard some stories. I know Ozzy was telling stories that he used to bring fireworks in to Belfields, and Kevin Campbell told us on the podcast that he turned up in a Nissan Micra because it was cheaper insurance, and he was just a good crazy. Have you got any good tales of working with Tommy?
There was a big scorch mark up the middle of the AstroTurf at Belfield where he let that one off, But I took him to several places with his knee and stuff like that, and it was just such a great player, lovely guy, but weird guy, And he always used to call me Mike. Okay, Mike. I said, right, Tommy, let's go and get this scan and see what the specialist says. Okay, Mike. So now we go for the scan. We see what the specialist said. I said, yeah, okay. I get in your car, and then we go together in your car. So we go in the car, and I get out. I said, I'm going to get some petrol. Okay, Mike, we get petrol now. He gets out of the car. I'm putting the petrol in. He stood next to me. Okay, we filling the tank. I said, yeah, probably half. Okay, we half fill the tank then. We get inside. He follows me in. He goes I'll pay for the petrol, Mike. I said, no, I'll pay for the petrol. Okay, Mike's paying for the petrol. Then we get back. He sits back in the car. Unbelievable guy. Just, but likable. Once he had a dead leg. Quite a bad dead leg, and we were playing Man United the next day, and they thought maybe should have made the game. But I'm on the player's side. If you got a bad dead leg, you got a bad dead leg. We're at the Worsley Marriott, and I've got to give him a fitness test in the morning. Anyway, we go down to the golf course for a fitness test, and he goes, Mike, we don't play. We don't play. We don't play. No, Mike, he goes, too sore. We don't play. They got great players. We don't play today. We leave it today. So, oh God, this is going to go down well. We get back in the foyer. I'm about to go up and tell Dave, come on, we go and tell the manager, we don't play. So, me and Tommy went to go to the lift. The lift opens, Moisey's there. How'd that go? Tommy goes, no, we don't play. We're not fit. We don't play. And Moisey goes, okay, but don't think you're going away with Denmark next week. He goes, come on, David, it's just a bloody eye strain, man. Going to be fine in 2 days. Of course I'm going. And I'm kind of stood there, I think, oh my God. But everyone liked him. Everybody knew what a player he was. He was a really good guy, really good professional. Yeah.
Kevin Campbell calls him good crazy, and I think that's what he sounds like.
Good crazy. Yeah, good crazy. Yeah.
That season you've mentioned there when you got the call to hit the blue bar in town when Arsenal beat Liverpool, and I think you all had a night out which lasted till the Arsenal game 3 days later, which us fans weren't too bothered about.
That was unbelievable, that. Because, as you say, we had the big night and then we got pumped 7-0, didn't we, at Arsenal?
Yeah, that's right.
So I was really gutted about that game, and Dave was... If I'd have been the manager, I had a go at being the manager, I weren't very good. If I'd have been the manager, I would have gone on the telly after it and said, guys, please forgive that. That's the night out. But David's not me. David's standards are a lot higher than mine. He was broken after that result. Broken, mate. And for a couple of days after that, and I'm thinking, come on, everyone knows. We've had a couple of nights of madness and that. Who cares? They're a great team. But he cared because his standards are a lot higher than mine, and he was really, really upset. And when I've got older and look back, I thought, yeah, he was right to be. That weren't good for anybody.
But from Houston right up until that point, and I'd even include that point, it sounds silly, but from the stands, watching on a Saturday afternoon or a Wednesday evening, there was such togetherness with that small squad of togetherness. What was it like at Belfield? Was it just the same? Were they all so tight together?
It was magical. It was a magical year. Do you get success because the players are great, or are the players great because you get success? I honestly don't know the answers to that. It's a little bit of both. a great memory from that year is beating Newcastle in the last home game 3-1. I think TC bumped the last goal in, and then it was 40,000 fans jumping, cheering. Funnily enough, and everything goes back to Everton, I was at Rotherham last week when they beat Middlesbrough 1-0 and stayed up against all the odds. And my lad was walking around the pitch and all the fans were stood cheering on the lap of honour. My wife and my son's girlfriend were on the pitch as well, and it took me back to that magical day back then. And I think when TC put that third goal in the Gladys Lane end, wasn't it? He pulled it down and buried it in the roof of the net. That was, again, right up there, one of the best moments of life. And then the final whistle goes, and it was all about everybody, all the staff. And I think I said, no, this is about the players. I'll stand here. You're coming on the pitch. Players dragging all the staff on the pitch as well. Magic times, mate.
What was Tim like? Because there was a couple of seasons running where he didn't start the season because of metatarsal injuries, and we were so worried. But what was he like as a patient? Was he a nightmare trying to get back, or?
He was so good. He was such a great fella. The money never changed. I'll tell a story. I did his medical for Millwall. He was crying with emotion to join Everton. I've never seen that before. I went to Australia a couple of times to do the rehab for his really complicated foot fracture, a diamond. I've seen him a couple of times. When I went back to Everton 4 years ago, he was there as well, and it was just like the years melted away. Funnily enough, when I was at Forest, yes, I've worked at every club, mate. I was at Forest for a year with Dave Weir and Mark Warburton. And on deadline day, I went down into the cafeteria. So it must have been, I guess it was the 31st of Jan. I went into the cafeteria. Tim sat there. I said, oh, God, it was unbelievable. So I've seen him a lot over the years. A fantastic guy. A guy who went for working class roots, working class family, became a multimillionaire, an icon in Australia. Never changed. Never changed. Yeah. As didn't Kev Kilbane and as didn't Wayne Rooney. And I think that's probably the mark of a man, to go from that to fame and stardom and not changing that. And that's what I would say about Tim.
Why did this metatarsal keep breaking? What causes that? Is it bad luck?
No. He broke his metatarsal at Sheffield United the first time. And it's a very common fracture. It's called a Jones fracture. And it's on that lump on the outside of your foot. And they're always stress related, but it broke there. And it needs a pin going down there. So, unfortunately, the little bit of the bone that broke was broke into a lot of little pieces. So after the operation, the consultant said to me, I've done a good job, but it was comminuted in pieces. So I couldn't do anything about that, and that'll heal by fibrous repair. So I'm now thinking, right, that's okay. We'll get him back. He'll play. But I know the next time he goes over on that foot, that's going to break and the pin's going to break. So I'm living now for the next 30 games with a time bomb. He got back, he played at Luton in the Cup, he played ever so well. We're playing West Ham at home towards the end of that season. They nearly scored in the first minute. We cleared it and we scored in the second minute. And Woodsy goes to me, Tim's on the floor in our 6-yard box. And Woodsy goes to me, I think Tim's broke his foot again. And that was one of the worst moments in my life. Although it was coming, it was a time bomb. And Tim walked off and kind of brushed past the medical staff down the tunnel, devastated. I'm not taking that personal. I'll be the same and that. And then that don't look good on anybody, but it weren't anybody's fault and that. I went back to Australia, an incredible surgeon over there, redid it, got the pin out, and he never looked back at that. So it was a unusual one at first, in the fact the bone didn't just break into usually a line goes through it, and you pull a little bit away, stick a pin down, everything's okay. But the little bit was broken to several places, and it made it much more difficult.
The Villarreal away game, always a sore subject. Now we as fans, we only see so much. We only see when the curtain goes back a little bit. I think we got a very, very raw reaction from the manager after it. And I think obviously the manager's job was to not only manage the players, but to manage the supporters and calm the anger down and stuff. But what was David like after at that Villarreal game?
Distraught, but my angle's different. So my memories of the Villarreal game is when the draw came out, Mikel saying, Jesus, that's the hardest draw we could have had. I'd never heard of Villarreal, but they'd obviously finished 4th in La Primera Liga. So he said, wow, they've got some unbelievable players. So that was my first experience of that. Second experience, 500 tickets, 1,000 tickets, no Everton fans there. Third experience, game kicked off at 10 o'clock at night. We're in a nice hotel in Valencia. I can speak Spanish now. In Valencia, just outside Villarreal. Long, hot day. Next experience, going out on the pitch. Everton fans everywhere. Jimmy Coma catching his breath, and a few little tears for Jimmy and for me as well, seeing all the toffees there. Next experience, oh my God, Ricardo seats in the dugout. Yeah. Next experience, look, the referee makes a decision. We're hurting, we're sore. The referee, world's greatest referee, gave a free kick. We can't see it, but he's the ref, so he's right on that. That robbed of extra time. The momentum was with us. But after the game, and I never even thought about this, Dave and everybody was so gutted because that's group stages and that's the chance of the big money and Everton going to that next level. So I say my memories and my disappointments of this, David's and I guess Bill Kenwright and the chief execs are slanted from another direction. To me, it was, we should have gone to extra time. Mind you, it would have been after midnight. So my angle's always slightly different,
A couple of other names I want to ask you about who were in the treatment room for, it seemed, quite a long time around that era. We signed James Beattie and he just couldn't get fit. Was that difficult for you? Because I think he came in after an injury that you weren't managing.
Yeah, I don't remember James being out that much. I remember having a lot of little things, but he came to us with a very, very good record. He'd had an Achilles, couple of injections in there, but that was fine. And that, again, I remember from a different point of view. I did his medical, and he said to me, because he's obviously at Blackburn and that, he was born in Lancaster, but he's kind of a Blackburn lad. We've adopted him. And he said to me, "You're my dad's favourite ever player." So I have a completely different, but I don't remember having massive injuries, a lot of niggly injuries maybe.
That's what it was. I think he'd start and then he'd come off, and he'd be out for 2 weeks, then start and come off, and it just seems to have loads of little niggles.
Against Chelsea, did he miss 3 games?
Yeah.
He couldn't really get going, but I don't remember James having surgery or anything like that.
No,
I think it was just niggly stuff, so what a guy. Again, pleasantly mad. You know what he used to do? He had an ingrown toenail. And I say, "James, don't piss about with that, because if you pull that piece out and it goes wrong, that's a nightmare injury for you." So we go, "Baz, have you got a minute?" You get the flash. He goes, "Look," and he pulled the piece out. I said, I actually give up, mate.
we had Ozzy on a while back, but he said about James Beattie, he said James was so good in the dressing room. He just came in and he wanted to be part of that team spirit that was already there, and he sort of overly reached to do it.
He was such a great guy, and he reminded me of Jim Carrey. Very much like Jim Carrey, the same kind of madness of Jim Carrey, shouting stuff out loud. And I say, God, that pulling his bloody ingrown toenail piece out used to make me, what are you doing? But we had such good people there. We had such good people and such good times. And, are the players like that now? Yes, they are. Are they allowed to because of the additional pressure, social media? Maybe not, as football changed now. So, look, like when I played in the 80s, we had cans of beer on the way in from a home game. When I say the way in, the walk off Ewood Park into the home team dressing room, we had cans. So everything moves on. Ronnie Clayton went to the games on a bus. Tom Finney went to the game on foot. Everything moves on and is of its era. The things we could do, like going out, I'm sat now at home, there's a pub up the road, all the Rovers players went there every Wednesday and got tanked up. That can't happen nowadays for obvious reasons and that. So it's of the time, and it is the time and that, and I don't know if all the Everton players could get together now and have a night out down in the central Liverpool. I don't know if that's doable anymore, so it's changed and that, and it's changed at every single football club. And when I tell players at all the clubs I work at about the drinking culture, that had gone by the time I got to Everton. It more or less gone anyway. We'd have a couple of nights out away from the club when we've maybe in Houston and that. But it has changed, and it's changed for a lot of reasons and that. So it can't ever be that madness anymore and that same stuff and that, but that's just how it is, Ian.
The other one there, now you said James, every time James seemed to get injured, it would be 1 week or 2 weeks. Every time this guy got injured, it seems to be 3 or 4 months. Andy van der Meijden, he came in and he just couldn't get fit. Well, what was the story behind Andy not being fit?
He had what a guy. He had a lot of catastrophic muscle injuries, all different muscles, not related directly to each other. He just couldn't get going. But you know something really funny? He used to call me his granddad. He goes, "Come on, granddad. I spend my life with my granddad. Come on, granddad," because he was injured all the time, like, you know. And fast forward 10 years, right? 10 years. I'm in Herenveen in Holland with the England under-20 team. We're playing in a tournament with Turkey, Holland. I don't know. We won the tournament. Adi Boothroyd. We get back to the hotel and we've celebrated and won the tournament. I'm having a couple of beers. A lad called Courtney Howe scored the winner with an overhead kick. So we're back at the hotel. We're having a few beers. It's lovely. I go back up to my room and I don't want to go to sleep. I've got a couple of beers in the fridge and that. Like, I'm sitting there on the edge of the bed. It's 2 a.m. I'll put Dutch TV on. A programme comes on called Andy and Anna. It's like fly on the wall. Mad Andy now with his bit of a belly and his wispy hair. Anna, his mad girlfriend, and it's about their crazy life together. So that's the last I heard of Andy.
Was he good lad around Belfield and Finch Farm? Yeah,
amazing. What a guy! Again, it didn't happen for him. He made mistakes. He would say that now, and
he has.
You know, we didn't see the best of him because he was such a good player on his day, and that, like, he could go past the player like he weren't there, and that. So it wasn't nice for the club. It wasn't nice for Andy. You know, it was just one of them things, and that nobody did anything wrong. I say nobody did anything wrong. Maybe Andy, looking back, would have probably made different choices. You know, everyone knows the backstory, don't they?
Of course, yeah,
you know? But what a guy, Jesus!
They always talk about.
Remember the first time me and Andy went out as part of his rehab, because he came with a bad groin injury, and Dave wanted him. Dave wanted him because Bolton were going to take him, and Bolton were almost direct competitors at the time with Sam.
Yeah.
He goes, "Baz, I want you to squeeze his through." I said, "Yeah, okay, but he's going to be out for 6 weeks with the groin." And I remember taking him out running and that, and beating him all the running, and he couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. This old guy would beat him in all the running. So we used to do the across the pitch line, stand on the touch line, first 18 and back, first 18 line and back, first 6 and back, far 6 and back, far 18 and back, far line and back. Give him like 120, but I had to extend Andy's time to 130. So,
they always talk about you know, when teams move stadiums that it takes a while. Is it the same with training complexes? And what was it like for you to move from Belfield to Finch Farm? Was that a sad day?
Of course it was. Nobody wanted to go. Now we're there. Of course it's miles better, the pool, the facilities and that. I worked at Man U for a couple of years after that, and all the old timers at Man U said they wanted to stay at the Cliff, and I'm sure all the people now at Kirby with Liverpool, which is incredible, like his Finch Farm, they all wanted to stay back in Crocky, like when Everton were in there, like West Derby, sorry. So it is what it is. I think we all have that, but you have to move on. And as squads have got bigger, and we brought the academies in as well, and the academies are bigger, and there's more staff, and there's more safeguarding, coaching, education. You couldn't do it out of Belfield. It's better now. Everybody at Everton is now at Finch Farm, whereas before I was kind of in charge of it, but I was nowhere near. Netherton was it called? So I had nothing under 18. I didn't want, no. I mean, the people there were great anyway, but it was kind of disconnected. So it is better to have everybody at the same ground. But yeah, we were devastated. It kept getting put off, and I was buzzing. I thought, please, I never want to leave here with the walls around. And we boot the ball will go over at Belfield onto the Bill Shankly playing field. No, not the Bill Shankly, it's the one on the other side, like, you know. And the ball will go over. You hear the car door open.
It'd be gone.
The car door closed and the car drive off. When I got there was no sign of that ball.
What is it, Baz, with things like Belfields? What make them so special? Is it just the history? Is it the same people that have been there for years? Or
it's the black and white pictures on the wall of Colin Harvey, and I think even Joe Mercer was there. Addy Catrick, was there, and it was all that. It is, you know, it does, you know, it comes down to those black and white photos from the 60s when it opened and that. and it was intimate, and it was small, and it was everybody crammed into the cafeteria, and it was this thing we had. If you went for a number 2 and closed the door, somebody tipped a massive tray of water on your head and stuff like that. And once Jimmy Martin, he got the soup slops, and he tipped it out the cafeteria into somebody's head, and it was the laughter. It was the intimacy, wasn't it? It was intimacy. You're all sweating in the same baths, and it is the intimacy. And it's nostalgia. People could say to me, the best days were when you were at Blackburn and you trained in the country park, and Ewood was like the old Ewood. I'm saying, right, thank you, but that can't be right, can it? When you look at the stadium now, the training ground. But people hang on to that, don't they? You know, bring back hanging. That's what I say.
I've read that.
Yeah, bring back kids walking through Liverpool in their bare feet. Bring it back. It was better. Bring back the Victorian era, no lights, throwing your turds out the bedroom window. Bring it back. It was better days. Bring back
Gascoigne's book, he says in it, he said Belfield, he said he wanted to stay there forever, playing head tennis and having the kitchen ladies looking after him and stuff. He loved it. But yeah, it's moving over to the 08-09 season. Now, that was a really great season. But I imagine for you, internally, it was a little bit of a chaos, because we've talked about Cahill and Van der Meijden. They're probably, the seasons prior to this season, the only real players you're working with long term. All of a sudden, we start hitting lots of serious injuries. The first one being the Yak, Yakubu at Tottenham, snapped his Achilles, and he never really came back the same player. How was that to manage?
It was really funny. I was sat at Spurs, and he goes down in a heap. So I ran on, and he goes, "Oh, Baz, somebody went into him from behind." He said, I've got a kick. It's just a kick. I'll be okay. So I get him off, leave him. I sit down again. He walks about 30 yards, collapses in a heap. And then Dom Rogan, brilliant physio, he's at West Ham now. Dom took him in, and then Dom comes back and goes, Baz, he's done his Achilles, I think, So it was really, really interesting, this one here, because I had him fixed up for surgery. You've got to get it done within 2 days. I had it fixed up with a guy called Tim Clough, brilliant in the Northwest. And then Moisey says to me on the Sunday morning, Baz, I've had Pinny Zahavi on. He's no having your boy. He wants this boy in London. So I Googled the guy, James Calder. He was really famous now after COVID and the concussion stuff. He's professor. He's a really famous guy. And I Googled him. I seen he did all the Chelsea players. So I went, yeah, we'll do that, So we got in to do it, and me and Jack went down. I watched the operation, incredible, because that Achilles, it ends up burst into like 1,000 pieces. It's like cutting through a horse's tail, and you just got the bits. It's like that, and they plait it back. It's unbelievable. And it was really interesting, because Moyes was worried about him putting a load of weight on. And Moyes was going, Baz, I think we're going to see the first 100 key footballer. But you know what? It was unbelievable, because we always went down first class on the train, and that there was loads of food available and that, and he never put any weight on. He was absolutely incredible, And I took him to London every 2 weeks to get you have to get you changed up, you get this surgery, and then every 2 weeks it comes back up to stretch the tendon and that, We become really close friends. Once we was in Sloane Square in traffic going to the hospital, and it weren't moving, and we was by the biggest Hugo Boss, and they know I like my Hugo. They used to call me Hugo Baz at Everton. I like my Hugo Boss stuff. So me and Yak are sat in the back of the taxi by the Hugo Boss shop, and he goes, Baz, why don't you go in and buy that hat? I said, okay, I will. I got out the taxi, went in, bought the hat, 100 quid, got back in the taxi and sat there with the hat on. He goes, I knew it would suit you. Still got that hat. I've still got that. He was great. He hated running. Moisey said to me, Baz, I'm not seeing you doing the long distance runs. I said, Dave, it's not him. He don't want to do it in that So he goes, Baz, I think he needs to do that. So one day, it was a really hot day at Finch Farm. I said, come on, Jack, we'll start with 1,200 yard fast runs. He goes, Baz, it's too hot. I don't do that. I goes, I'll tell you what then, if I bring a chair out, what about if you sit there and I do the runs? He goes, makes sense. So Yak sat on the chair and I did the runs. But bottom line is he done his work, he done really well. He got back playing to a reasonable level, which was, I guess, all we could have hoped for. My
Yeah.
Twitter picture even now is the goal he scored at Hull, and he run to me and
Ran
hugged
to
me.
you.
Well, I had tears in my eyes. I love that guy. I loved him.
Yeah.
I really did.
We did as well. He seemed to be such a, even on the pitch, like he'd just smiling when he's playing football. He'd walk around smiling, and that's infectious, isn't it? He got injured at Tottenham, and I think Louis Saha got injured the same game, but Louis had come with some issues. I remember when we signed Louis, fans were excited but quite worried because he has a bad injury record. Do you manage someone differently when they come in with a bad injury record like Louis?
Yeah, I was buzzing when they signed Louis Saha. I think it was a feeling of, oh God, I've got some bad news for you, Baz. But I was buzzing like, you want to work with the best players. So what we did, we gained his trust, me, Danny and Matt and Dom in them days and that, like, you know. And if Louis came in and said, look, I've got a tight calf, I would say, right, let's stay off training today. And he goes, well, is that going to be okay? Can you do that? What will the manager say? He wants players to train, which is a great way for a manager to be. I'd say, no, I'll don't worry about that. And Dave bought into it as well. I said, look, we need to gain his trust in that. For the first year, it was no. If you're feeling something, you stay in the pool or the gym today. I'll sort that out with the manager. And the manager was great. And then the second year, I think he was available for every game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he signed a new contract.
He signed a new 2-year deal because I think his first deal was sort of a bit of a pay-as-you-play kind of thing, and then he'd earned one that wasn't.
Yeah. But again, you want to work with the best. I love working with it. And was it a challenge working with him? Well, that's not fair saying it was a challenge to work with a player, but it was stimulating and it went really well. And that was our modus operandi. Gain his trust first, show him you're not going to throw him under the bus, be sympathetic, care about the guy, and then get him on side. And then he was absolutely fantastic, a joy to work with.
Victor goes down at Newcastle, a really, really poor challenge from Kevin Nolan, and Victor takes an awful long time to come back from it. Do you know when you see an injury, now this might sound a strange question, but when you see an injury caused by somebody else, do you get angry as the head of medicine?
No. I've injured a lot of players when I was about.
Fair enough.
No, because it's got nothing to do with me. I see physios go on the pitch and they're shouting at the other crowd, shouting at the ref about all kinds of stuff. That was offside ref. I think it's nothing to do with me. Funnily enough, I met Kevin Nolan a few times when I was at Forest because he worked for Notts County and that, and we bumped into each other. Really nice fella and that. It's in a split second. He don't sit there before the game thinking, right, I'm going to hurt somebody. It's a split second. I don't think for a minute, it weren't a great tackle, but I don't think he thought, right, I'm going to do it. I don't think players think like that. I never thought like that. The thing about that injury, though, it was a bad gash on the shin, and we never realised till 3 days later when he said, oh, by the way, the outside of my knee's really sore as well. Then we realised he'd ruptured his lateral ligament. Because at the time, all was a massive cut on his shin. Then he come back 3 days later and said, God, the outside of my knee's really sore now. And we went, oh my God.
Wow.
So that was that. But but no, I don't. You know, it's football. It's all part of football. You know, God forbid somebody injure my son. I don't think I'd be going down that road. It happens. It happens quickly in the game. I honestly don't believe that any player thinks, right, I'm going to give you a very serious, potentially career-threatening injury sometime in the next 10 minutes. I know players can lose their head for a minute and go in harder and that, like, you know, but I'm sure it's not premeditated, mate.
The other two that season were Phil Jagielka, Mikel Arteta went down with I think it was cruciate ligament injuries. Now they both took a long time to come back as well. Were they difficult ones to manage and get back fit?
In modern parlance now, it's a 9-month injury. When I first dealt with ACLs at Preston 25, 30 years ago, it was 9 months. Then it was 8. Then it was 7. Then it was 6. Then it was 5. Pistone came back from 5, 4 marks to the lad. And then we talking about 4. And then people had secondary complications. And then it went back out to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9. And that's where it is. It's 9 months. You've got holes drilled through the bones. Really funny enough. Weird, isn't it, life? So, Rotherham, Sheffield, no. Jags is at Stoke, isn't he?
Yeah, he is still playing, yeah.
So Rotherham played Stoke recently, and I went to the game, and my lad, did my lad score? Or so anyway, my lad came up to the players, and I think he must have got man of the match, he got the award and that. And a couple of the Stoke players come in, Jags came in, and Oliver went to the Jags and went, my dad's over there. And Jags goes, who's your dad? He goes, Baz, Mick Rathbone. He goes, bloody hell, Ollie, I never cottoned on. Ollie Rathbone, God. So I seen Jags only a few months ago, pushing 40, fantastic guy. What a servant for the club, like Baines and that, like, you know, bought for like kind of loose change in modern terms and that. But no, they're 9-month injuries, mate.
Do you put pressure on yourself, even unfairly, when your physio room has a number of big players? Do you put pressure on yourself? Do you feel, God, I've got to get these fit quick?
Yeah, and I'm probably too unassuming and humble and that, like, you know. So I go up every morning at 9:15, and I've got Moyes, Lumsden, Woods, Irving, Holden sat there. I give out the medical report of the day, who's training, who's not. I feel really bad when I'm giving bad news. And really, you're only giving bad news. You're giving either some bad news or a lot of bad news or loads of bad news. I don't go up and say, oh, so-and-so is completely okay. He's fine. He's training. No issues with him. That's fine. You're only essentially being the giver of bad news. And I feel really bad about it. Now, I want to give Dave and his staff the best team available to play. I never injured a player while I was a physio. I never injured them. We do a good job. We've got good people around, the surgeons, scans, all that kind of stuff, radiologists and that. But yes, I feel really bad. I feel like I'm letting them down a little bit, like, you know. But I can't help what happened to Victor. Did Mikel do his cruciate in the same game?
Same game at St James's Park, yeah.
It was in the 46th minute.
He just went down, and you seen holding his knee, and you think, oh no.
No, Mikel was stood in front of me. It was right by the dugout.
Yeah.
He went down. And I said to Dave, that looks like a cruciate. He was, I said, Dave, that looks like a cruciate, the way his knee crumbled and that. So in that 90 minutes of a game, we've gone from maybe being very, very light to right, we've now got we've got a 6 month and a 9 months now. So every morning now till the end of the season, I come up to the room and whatever dead legs, flu, tight hamstring, I've got them two sitting there for the next 9 months.
How do you keep them? How do you keep them? Now, without getting too deep, how do you keep their mental state positive? Because they're with you every day and they're watching the team go to Wembley.
Well, I'm very, very funny, as you can see, and we have magic fun, and I'm good to be around. So there isn't. But in all seriousness, Ian, what we would do with like Jags. So, for instance, Jags had plateaued. You do well at first, get off the crutches, and then you can start on the bike and in the pool. Then you've got a bit of a couple of months where it plateaus and that. So I said to Matt Connery, why don't you take Jags to, I think took to Lanzarote, 5 days, have a bit of sun, work a couple of times a day, get him on the bike, out in the fresh air, have a blow out there, have a couple of beers, take him in the pool for an hour, some hard swimming, have a few beers at night, come back at the end of the week. Stuff like that. And I would say to people like Jags, right, see you Monday. So what we're doing, we're going to work really hard Monday, Tuesday on the bike. We're going to race. We're going to absolutely drain ourselves. Wednesday off. Thursday, Friday, the same on the cross trainer. Then I want you to have 5 days off. So we would do that. We'd understand that psychology. We're not wiping the floor with the players and that, like, you know, we're not.
Did Mikel go back to Spain? Am I right in saying Mikel went to Spain for a little bit as well?
Yeah, Mikel wanted his own people to handle it. Not a problem. When I first became a physio, that would have caused me great self-doubt, self-searching, human, individual, self-evaluation pain. As I got older, I realised that was part of the game. It wasn't an issue. I went over a couple of times. The guys with Mikel were top draw. Kugat did the operation, who Guardiola raves about. Mikel was with his own one-on-one guy. He was Joaquin, lovely fella, so no issues with that. And then after I got over the angst when that first started happening, I thought to myself, yeah, if I'd done my cruciate and I was playing in Spain but living in Blackburn, I'd love to come back for a couple of months and see a physio over here, be with my family and that. So it all makes sense. Now, I'm not leaving them with somebody I've never heard of. You're leaving them with the top people as well. Yeah. They're sending me a video report every 3 days. We're in constant touch. I went over regularly. Mikel came back regularly. No issues.
Yeah. So we'll get to 2009. We're at Wembley for a semi-final. We're at Wembley for an FA Cup final. So you've been at Everton for 7 years at this point. You've not supported Everton. You've not played for Everton. You're still quite new at Everton. Where does that rank to wear the Everton badge at Wembley as part of the first team staff?
That was incredible. That was the final in particular. It's a shame now you drive under the stadium, because me and the Doc, we become really close friends. The Doc's been Everton for 50 years. When we drove up Wembley Way, I couldn't see a Chelsea fan. I could not see a Chelsea fan. And me and the Doc were like holding back the tears. It was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. The semi-final was business. As you know, we scraped from... No, we won on penalties.
Penalties, yeah.
Yeah, Varney got the winning pen, did he? I'm not sure. And that, like,
he got one. Jags got the winning pen. Varney did get one.
And I remember Varney, who'd been out for so long with his knee and that. I worked with Varney in the summer. He was kind of sporting director at Tranmere. I seen him every day. It was weird. I hadn't seen him for 10 years. It meant so much. And I remember me and Varney hugging so hard after the game. He'd been out for so long with the knee. So all these things are tied up. But for me, the semi-final was business because we stayed down and we played Chelsea on the Tuesday. The funny thing was, on the Sunday, they had this idea, Steve Rand had this idea that if you went in the ultra cold, you could recover quicker. So we went to Champneys in that minus 50 degrees. I remember me, Moisey, Lummy and Roundy and Woodsy being in the minus 50 for 2 minutes. And we're all singing and shouting, and that is so cold. We drew 0-0 at Chelsea.
We did, yeah, I remember.
Joe had a blinder, and that was our best performance of the season, that. And Roundy maintains to this day it was a cryotherapy. I'm not arguing. So for me, the memory of the semi was about this is work, and we've got a game, we're staying down. The final, obviously, the happiest minute of my life.
Yeah.
And I knew my wife and my son there. Afterwards, it was crap. You know, first, seconds nowhere. The club are incredible at looking after the family and the staff and that. They flew my wife down and my son and that. We all went to that massive hotel, Dorchester, I think it was, on the corner of Hyde Park. We had an amazing dinner and everything and that. But you know what? It's not there. It's not on the table, is it? The cup's not there. So it was empty. The next day, we all flew back on the same plane. And it was great, the extent they went to accommodate all the staff. But we ain't got the cup, so it didn't really mean an awful lot, you know.
The following year, it didn't make much sense to me as a supporter that despite Mikel's back, Phil Jagielka's fit again, Vaughan and Victor are back playing, Louis Saha is at the height of his fitness, that you, at the end of the 09-10 season, are no longer at the Everton head of medicine. Again, without going too far into the weeds, I know from reading your book that you were maybe thinking of maybe leaving, but that didn't quite get to that point.
Yeah, I was 50. I felt completely burned out. I'd worked nearly every day for 18 years. And I was finding it harder and harder. So, you know, I felt just that you needed a little bit of a break. It was really interesting. I made up this story because about a year after I left, I was away with the under-17 England team. And the first team were in. And I seen Baines and Jags for the first time since I left. And they went, what happened?
Yeah.
I said, it was unbelievable. I said, it was after the Portsmouth game. We won in the 94th minute, didn't we? Billy scored. Yeah. My lad loved him. And my lad said to me, will you get me a shirt with Billy Letdinoff on the back? I thought, right, £2 a letter. Persuaded him. He had persuaded him Joe was a better player. I got him the Joe shirt. Anyway, I made up this story. So Jags and Baines goes, what happened? He goes, Moyes just got me in. He goes, Baz, he goes, it's time for the change. And I said, oh, don't go, Dave. You're doing a great job. He goes, Baz, in the medical department. I said, you've never liked Danny Donachie. He goes, Baz, it's not Danny. I said, Matt Connery. Baz, it's not Matt Connery. I said, hang on a second. In the medical department, not Matt and not Dan. I goes, Dave, you have to give me a clue. He goes, Baz, he's in the room now. It's not me. I'm looking under the chairs and behind the curtains. Anyway, I made that story up for Baines and Jags. Funnily enough, when my second book came out, I went down to Jeeves and Hawks, or whatever, it was on Talk Sport again. Done half an hour, stay a bit longer. You're getting rave reviews. Guilty. Anyway, so I tell that story. I tell a story. I get back, my wife's down there because my daughter lives in London. We have a food. Missed call on my phone. David Moyes.
Oh.
Answer phone message. I thought, oh God. Oh my God. He still has the ability to make you go, oh God. So I listen to the answer phone and he goes, Baz, it's David here. I was coming out of West Ham's training ground. I had TalkSport on. I heard your story, Baz. I've got to say, I thought it was brilliant. I couldn't stop laughing. But the truth is, Dave got me a couple of times that last year and said, Baz, come on, where's the old Baz? And I say in my second book, the old Baz had become the old Baz. I needed a break. He said, Baz, come on, lift it. I need you. I couldn't. He gave me every opportunity. And then that day when he said, look, Baz, time for a change, he done me the biggest favour. And he went up in my estimation. It was amazing. And that, like, you know, and it was really funny because I say in my book, the first line is sacked. I got sacked by my best friend. Sounds like a tagline from Jeremy Kyle. I stumbled down the stairs. What the hell happened? Fellaini's talking. Oh, God, he keeps going back to Belgium, sees mom. Oh, it's not. Oh, not my problem. F off, delete. I get in my car. I love this car. E-Class Merc. Oh, no, that's got to go. I put the radio on. You can go your own way, Fleetwood Mac. You couldn't make it up, could you? But it was really funny. And I say then, I got home. I felt absolutely, Ian, unburdened. I felt 10 years younger. I felt like a different person. All that pressure, like Charles Atlas, bump, all the pressure had gone. I felt great. The club looked after me. It was absolutely incredible. And then it was really funny, I say, don't I? I'm sat at home. You're waiting for the ubiquitous yellow ribbon coming across and that. I'm sitting there waiting for it to come across. And then I say in the book, my wife went to bed. Then the kids went to bed. Shouldn't that be the other way around? And then about midnight or 1 a.m, here it comes. Breaking news. Everton have parted company with head of medical Mick Rathbone. Everton have parted company with head of medical Mick Rathbone. Everton have parted company. And I say in my book, yeah, I can live with that party company. And that was it. So I went on an amazing note. I had the best 8 years of my life. And even the end was magical. So I could sit here now, and if I thought about it, I would have tears in my eyes, mate. And every time I see the badge, every time I see the ground, every time I hear the word Everton, 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 Rotherham could play Everton. It's unbelievable, mate. And I think Alan Irving said to him, Alan played, I never played for Everton, you know, so I don't want to be like superficial, but magical. And every time I see, oh, Everton on Sky, the Everton badge, the little Prince Rupert Tower, everything about Everton. My wife said the other day, what are you shouting at? 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1. You know, and I left 10 years ago. I left 10 years ago. So,
it's mad.
You're lucky.
It's true, isn't it? Once Everton touches you, is that right, Baz?
I know that, but you know what? I went back about 10 years ago because it was Tim Howard's last game. And my son-in-law had just left Norwich to work for a company that does software in football. And it was the last game of the season. You know that game. Everton 3, Norwich 0. Norwich were already down. A lot of the young lads played who I knew really well, like Kieran, who I was with England and at Forest with. And I think Lego played. And I think John Joe played and that, like, you know. Yeah. So the club were great. I went into the Everton dressing room. Craig went into the Norwich dressing room before the game. And like, no one looks after you like Everton. They put a meal on. I was having a meal before the game. And Mr. Mashiri walked across with Bill Conroy. Everybody jumped up cheering and that. And the people on my table said, now's a chance to make this club great. And what I said now sounds prophetic. I said, mate, this is a great club. There's no club like this. I've worked at loads of them. Steeped in community, the history, the feel. There's nothing like this club. Trust me, mate. Just be careful what you're wishing for. You don't end up with a multi-million billionaire owner, manager every 9 months and that, like buying players who aren't any better and losing your identity. And I think we'd all agree that happened. I say when I went back, it was great when Ancelotti came in. I went in with the senior players during Project Reset. There were loads of injuries. and I felt it coming back. I felt with Carlo, who just come in the gym and laugh and joke with me, who didn't know him, and with the players. And Danny said he's got it. He's got that feel. And then obviously the dunk thing as well. And I felt it was getting its way back. And I think now with Dyche, I think look, everything I say has been wrong over the last 40 years. But for me, Everton's about Britishness. I don't know if you could even say that without being, I don't know.
I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
Is it xenophobic when you don't like? It's not about that. Everton's British. Everton playing blue. Everton playing a high press. Everton bring academy players through. When you go to Everton, you might win the game, but you're going to get your arse fought because they're going to tackle and run and push. And when you go for throwing, the guy in row A is going to call you a knobhead. And that's what Everton's about. And I went there with Blackburn in the FA Cup in '87, and it was really funny. I went to get the ball, and somebody shouting, "Calm down, slaps!" So that's what Everton is to me. That's what Everton is to me. And I think we lost it. And I think we're getting it back now. And as I say, I think we'll be okay. I hope so. And that, but my experience of Everton is magical.
Yeah, no, I hope you're right. I really hope you're right. It's been a tough few years for us supporters. It's been great to speak to you, Baz. I'm sorry I've kept you so long. I told Baz really 5 minutes, and he's given me an hour 15.
And if you do go down, I'll see you at the New York Stadium, Rotherham versus Everton.
Yeah, your son will be getting booed after saying that, I think.
Yeah.
Just before we let you go, Baz, I put a thing at the bottom there, page of The Smell of Football 2, still online at thesmelloffootball2.co.uk. That's the follow-up to the brilliant Smell of Football.
Yeah, I've the Smell of Football 2.
I've got two signs. Yeah, I've got two signs. I've got 2 signed copies of both books from you. You very kindly showed them on your socials and signed them for me. And they're brilliant. So I recommend anybody. I think if you Google The Smell of Football, the original one, Amazon, I've still got copies online. But what made you do a couple of books, Baz? What was it?
Right, so I'm sat in a bar in Tenerife many years ago with Alan Irvine, having a wine. No, we weren't. We was having a Guinness and a baby Guinness, having a great night. So this would be 2004. And I said to Alan, I'm going to write a book. And he said to me, in his inimitable way, who's going to walk past Paul Scholes' book and buy your book? I said, mine's going to be different. It's going to be talk about the other side of football that people don't see, the smelly side. There's a double entendre. Fast forward 10 years, I'm working at Man U. Somebody sent a copy of the book in to get signed. Paul Scholes is there, and he's looking at it. He looks at the back, and on the back there's all nice things about the book. And ESPN say, you can forget the books by Gary Neville and Paul Scholes. The Smell of Football is the best football book of the year by a country mile. I rest my case. I'm so proud. But you know what? I worked at Salford last year with Gary Bowyer. I give him my second book. He said, oh my God, it's amazing. He said, can I get the first book? I said, no, it's gone. You can't get it anywhere. He goes on eBay and that. He goes, bloody hell, I've been quoted £100 a copy. Anyway, when the second one came out, the publishers were the first, and it was in all Waterstones, but the second I just store online because you make more profit. So the people in London, they got to contact me and said, look, now the second book's out, why don't we do a 10-year, couple of thousand special edition? If you write a preface at the front and the last bit of the new reprints, the first chapter of the second book. So I think technically there are a couple. I think I'm doing a book signing for the Bournemouth game at St Luke's Church somewhere of the second book.
Good. So we'll give that a plug on our socials as well. And yeah. I've put on there as well. If you want to follow Baz on Twitter, it's at Mick Rathbone, and we're of course at Across the Park C. So we'll put we'll put all that on our socials before the Bournemouth game. But I couldn't recommend both books. I got my father-in-law the combo for Christmas.
Yeah.
Father-in-law, obviously a big blue, and he said to me, "Oh, didn't play for us. There can't be that many good stories about Everton." And I said, "Just trust me." Laughing his head off, said to me, "Brilliant. All the Everton content alone, absolutely brilliant." So I recommend it to anybody.
It flows as well in because the first book's about the first bit, the old Everton, and the second book's me kind of coming back and seeing those changes, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting that they've both got the Everton stuff in, I guess, isn't it?
They have, and if anybody's looking for some drinking games, buy the first one and have those drinking games that you used to do, Baz, on the coaches. That got me. I went to Rhodes with my missus, all inclusive, so we didn't pay for them. Let's play this game. Good God, I don't know who carried who back to the room. Unbelievable,
mate. When I look back at that, I was only 17. I should be dead, shouldn't I? I had to breathe. I couldn't train. I was in Holland. You know the story. I was in Holland, and oh, what a day! Unbelievable. God, I think it'd be child abuse nowadays.
Yeah, maybe so. Baz, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
I've
And like
really
I said,
I'm
no,
going to shout now because I've been running up and down the terraces at Boundary Park.
No, it's been brilliant. Anyone who's watching, it's at Mick Rathbone on Twitter. And please leave your comments for me and Mick in the comments below. Thank you so much, Mick, once again for joining us on Across the Park.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure. Goodbye.